Hey y'all. I know I don't do this very often anymore. I just got done recording the Dragon review video that I'm working on right now, but I just figured, hey, I wanted to touch base because I didn't upload at all in January or at all in February. So I'm just letting you know that I'm here, that I have started working on those longer projects again, but what I want to do here is talk about it's like the trans state of the union. Like what's going on? What are the most important things for us to note so far since the regime change recently? Just trans issues. I'm going to focus on that because that's what's directly relevant to my audience for the most part. So, the short list is basically okay, executive order, which has said that you can't provide gender affirming care to anyone under the age of 19 or anyone 19 or younger. This is so the thing about these executive orders that you really should understand is that they are not necessarily binding law. They don't really change existing law. Every single one of them has a language couched in it that says, to the extent that it is possible within currently existing laws, basically. I'm paraphrasing. But so knowing that that executive order doesn't actually change the law and that it is in direct conflict with many state laws, this should not constitute a sweeping change. However, the problem that we're running into is that many hospitals are changing their policies just, in a preemptive, let's not lose our funding or have any kind of ire drawn upon us kind of way. So that's the unfortunate thing, is that a lot of these institutions don't seem to recognize that this is not a legally binding law. Like this is, not a directive that they are required to follow. The state attorney general in New York advised hospitals within the state of New York that they would be in violation of state law if they declined to provide this care to gender nonconforming youth. So that is to say, there is a fight. And as I predicted before, there is going to be a protracted legal battle. Now, we are now running into a question of, it seems as though the Trump administration is simply going to ignore court orders, including, and this doesn't have anything directly to do with trans people. It's mostly the issues of freezing funding and the fact that Congress is supposed to have like control over the funding. And it's not within the purview of the executive powers to just decide when not to do that, but they seem to be ignoring the judge's orders to provide information or to unfreeze the funds or whatever. So that's the issue we're running into right now. Although I will say again, several states are engaged in a lawsuit countering this particular executive order that we're discussing in specific. I know that the states of Minnesota, I believe Washington and Oregon, and maybe one other one. I don't know if California has joined in this lawsuit, but so there's a lawsuit that multiple states are filing. And so at the very minimum, we're seeing that stuff work through in the courts, right? And there are local hospitals. I know of one back where I just moved from. Also, OHSU in Oregon is saying, like, we are not making any changes to providing this care. Even if you threaten our funding, we will still find a way to provide this care. So keeping in mind that it depends on where you live. This is the thing I've been saying for a while. I think the safest thing to do as an American is to live in a blue state with protections. Now, I will also say that there is a question as to whether these, like, what level of safety can we feel in like a blue state, for example. As far as I understand it, they did send in troops to California to mess with the dams and release all the water that gets stored during the wet season in preparation for the dry seasons. Like, we're currently in the wet season in California and we have all these wildfires because it's a historically dry winter. So all of that water was necessary. I know I said I was only going to talk about trans stuff. It's hard to keep it contained because there's just so much happening. But so the question I have been asking is, like, are there going to be troops on the ground? Let's say you live in Seattle. Are you going to see troops on the ground? Don't know at this point. That's the thing that elevates this. That's the thing that like elevates this to a level beyond just bureaucratic, denial of passports. So it's another thing that it's important to mention. If you need an update of any kind to your passport, you can expect that they will revert your ID back to the gender assigned at birth. So like Hunter Schafer, very beautiful actress from, Euphoria and Hunger Games, she just had her passport returned to her and it was given an M instead of F for female. So those are important things to just be aware of as you're moving through the world, that your ID can potentially, and if you live in a red state, obviously you've already known that your ID can be forcibly reverted back if you need to replace it for any reason. So far, they're not like going to people's houses and taking documents away from them, but it is like within their purview to just change your identity documents despite the fact that you affirmed your gender through a legal process. Anyway, let's see, what else is there? What else is really important going on with trans people? So the Department of Homeland Security, this is one of the other big ones that I think is most important for you as my subscribers, followers, whatever, to know that the Department of Homeland Security, which is, you know, they investigate domestic threats, right? They're a surveillance organization, you know, they investigate, they can surveil people, they can, you know, basically seek information from people. And they have a policy, the DHS Office of Intelligence and Analysis has this policy that basically states that the personnel at DHS are not allowed to surveil people just because of their religion or their race or whatever. Essentially, this would mean something like, you know, thinking of our country's recent history, the idea of like Muslims and the terror activity and everything. So there's a rule that says just because someone is Muslim, you can't surveil them just because of that. You would need to have like they're Muslim and they're closely related to somebody we know is involved with terrorist activities or something, right? You can't use that as the only reason. So previously, this definition, this list of characteristics included gender identity. It actually included gender identity, and sexual orientation. But it has been rewritten now to just say race, ethnicity, sex, religion, those kind of things. So they changed gender to sex. They removed gender identity and sexual orientation. Now, what this means is that if you are queer, if you are gay, if you are a trans person, if you are gender nonconforming, they can surveil you, which means like they can watch you constantly and potentially access what you believe are private communications. And this is something I am bringing up because many of us are interested in protesting or getting involved, finding a way to undermine whatever, like finding a way to preserve democracy. This is something that a lot of us feel very passionately about, right? But I'm telling you this because if you are trans, they do not need any other reason to surveil you. They can watch everything you're doing, legally speaking. That's the rule that they've just written for themselves, right? And so at a time where we are simultaneously seeing Trump, I think it was like today or yesterday as I'm recording this video that he put out an executive order that says that, or maybe it was just a statement, but regardless, stating that schools may have their funding stripped if they allow protest and that this protest is considered illegal. So they're coming after the First Amendment, right? So, but like I'm just saying, if you're a trans person who is going to a protest, let's say at a college, because that's the particular discussion that Trump was laying out, is like at schools, at universities that receive public funding. The premise here is that if you are trans and you go to a protest that has been declared unlawful, they will know about it before you go because they can surveil you. They're allowed to do that. They've given themselves permission to do that. So these are just kind of some of the things that I wanted to bring up because I want people to know how to move. I want you to know how to move through society. I want you to know how to protect yourself. And just being aware of the things that are happening that may directly impact you. But the reason why I'm kind of doing this one update too is that I think that you should not be constantly inundating yourself with this information. I think if you check in once or twice a week and see like, you know, what has accumulated over the past week, that's probably a better idea. Because here's the thing, this is terrorism. When you use fear to control a population, that is terrorism, like for political purposes, right? So if you are trying to create an atmosphere of fear, that is what that is, politically speaking. So if trans people are being attacked, terrorized, whether that's through the legal documents or whether that's from the militia groups or whatever, and trans people are not the only group under attack, to be totally clear. We're seeing attacks on cis women. We're seeing attacks on political dissent. But you should try your best to not actively be terrorized. Like, they don't have control over whether you are terrorized. If you log off for 3 days, recuperate your strength, come back to the fight a little bit rejuvenated, get your hands in the earth, go for a walk, spend some time in the sun, spend some time with local friends, watch a movie, like do things that are going to regulate your nervous system, because you will not be effective. You will not be able to fight back against any of this if you aren't strong mentally and physically. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're getting off that phone a reasonable time before bed. Do not pick up the phone first thing in the morning and start scrolling and finding out, well, like what are the newest atrocities today, in order to be effective at whatever it is you choose to do. And in any country, in any situation, in any movement, in any political age, we need people doing a variety of jobs. We need people volunteering at homeless shelters. We need people growing food in their garden and donating it to people who need it in their communities. We need people showing up at town halls. We need people protecting the protesters. We need people protesting. We need legal observers. We need people calling and showing up at offices of politicians. We need everything. We need medics. We need gardeners. We need protectors. We need fighters. We need everything. So if you feel like there's one particular image of what you should be doing right now, I guarantee that there's more flexibility and more complex different roles for you to fill. We need graphic designers. We need propaganda. Propaganda is a stigmatized term, but it just means like something that's going to stir people to action, right? We need art. We need music. Remember that song, and maybe you didn't see about it because like I only found out about it through last week tonight, but that song that's like, you know, we're in a hostile government takeover. I'm worried about it, but I'm going to be late for work, right? We need music. We need art. We need love. We need friendship. We need camaraderie. We need to set aside some of our bullshit differences. We need to lay down the discourse on pansexual lesbians or fucking whatever. You see what I mean? This is not the time. This is not the time for quibbles. It's not the time for fighting. Sometimes you're going to have to work with people who have dog shit opinions. Like, let's say you're trans and you're volunteering at the homeless shelter. You might have to serve food to somebody who does not like trans people. And like, that just is the reality of the world. We are still in progress toward a place where trans people are accepted, or whatever the issue is. You know, Black people, Native American people, trans people, gay people, like all of us are under some level of threat. Even like, again, just regular old cis women we think of as this like liberated class, but no, they're still having their rights revoked, rolled back, undone. So this is the time to build coalition. This is the time to show up to a DSA meeting, an SRA meeting, John Brown Gun Club, like whatever it is, local queer group, local gardening group. I'm making friends through like the community garden that I've decided to take part in. So do things that you have control over. Think about things that you have control over. Love the people closest to you. Keep aware of what's going on, but don't let it consume you. Stay aware of what's going on, but don't let it bog you down. We need you. At every stage, we need you. And we need you to take the appropriate time to recuperate between actions so that when you come back, you can come back strong. So if what you need right now is a break, take a week off. I give you permission to take a week off, rest, focus on your family, focus on yourself, make sure your house is clean to the extent that, you know, for me, it helps mentally to be like, there's no dishes in the sink, you know? If there's a task that you've been ignoring or looming for a while, I promise you, you will feel better. It will be a mental weight off of you if you just can complete that one task, right? So whatever it is, whatever your personal struggle is, know that we're rooting for you. Know that we need you. Know that we need you at your best that you're able to give. So, you know, let's try to be mindful as well of our tendency to be reactionary, our tendency to be defensive, our tendency to want to shut down and isolate ourselves, because those things are not going to help us. What we need now more than anything is community, mutual support. So that's kind of the update from me. Again, I am not really planning on doing this kind of content on my channel that much. It's just been 2 months and I haven't posted anything. And I know that a lot of you do not come to the live shows, and that's totally fine because it's a fundamentally different format. Normally, I'm sitting here getting interrupted by things that I read in the chat, and I'm like, well, blah, 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 I'm going to talk about this. But that's it for today. I think that I'm going to leave it there. I love you very much. Thank you for being here, whether it's here on this channel or whether it's here in this fight. It is not over. It will never be over, because when you repress people like this, you stomp one and two more rise. You kill one person, you make all of the enemies of, like, you make enemies out of every person who loved that person, right? So let's just keep going. Recognize that the fight is going to be ongoing for a while, that many different things need protection right now, and there are many different protests available at this time. I know as of recording this upcoming weekend, there is a, not global, but a nationwide protest in defense of science because of the dismantling of scientific organizations that have received government funding. There will be more economic protests. I know that coming up in March, there is 1 week boycott against Nestle. There's a 1 week boycott against Amazon. There will be another total economic blackout protest in April. It's all about little steps, everybody. Even if you personally think that boycotting Amazon for a week or boycotting Walmart for a week is not going to help anything, it's about taking what action you can now, showing people that they can build towards something bigger. So if you can't set aside your bullshit for one day to not go shopping or to choose to use cash or to choose to support local businesses on the economic blackout day that's coming in April. We just had the one on February 28th. If you didn't know about it, hey, now you know there are upcoming boycotts that you can easily participate in. And it may feel like it's a small thing, and it is a small thing, but many small pieces of snow accumulate into an avalanche, and that's what we need right now. We need millions of small actions. Anything you can do is better than nothing. You don't have to turn the world upside down in order to make a difference. So please just take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and I will see you next time. Be safe.